Hello, hello. Ooh, that was fast. So I have a new phone, and so I am scoping for the first time my new Samsung Galaxy S7. So Samsung, shout out if you want to send some new devices my way, I'll take them. But let me introduce myself really quickly before I dive into this topic. So, my name is Ashia Sims, and I am a content strategist. And what that means is that I provide a high value strategic approach to the words, images, and videos you use to communicate about your brand. And hello, everyone. Welcome. Join in. And so, um, so I wanted to talk about that, and I'm going to do a kind of a short series for the next few days. Hello, welcome. About what you should do if you want to get a job in social media, and what prompted this. Hi, Donna. And what's prompting this is that I have been working on a project where the client was looking to hire someone for social media, and so we were putting out resumes and kind of looking at resumes and figuring out who to push through to the next part of the process. And it was a fairly junior position, but it was kind of one of those junior with a bullet. So like you need to have some basic experience, but you also need to be able to ramp up quickly because it's a definite growth role. And so going through that process, it was very interesting for me because I got to see kind of how people perceive social media from both ends, from the hiring end and also from the I would like to work in social, and especially when you have like a junior type of position. And so I wanted to talk about this because I think it's important, and also social media is kind of sexy. So a lot of people are trying to get into social media because it's technology. It's like technology without having to learn how to code, or without having to learn like some deep tech skills. Because like if you want to get into design, or if you want to create an app, or a lot of the really cool tech industries, they require you to have like some pretty in-depth tech knowledge. Whereas social media is it's a lot of people, most of us, pretty much all of us, I hate to throw my privilege over here, but a lot of people, a huge number of people in the US, I'll say, are using social media in some capacity. So even if you aren't heavy in it, you have a profile, you've been on it, you've looked at a friends. Social media is something that a lot of people are very, familiar with. So a lot of times you see like, oh, this would be cool if I could do this every day. And it is cool because as someone who essentially works in social, even though my focus is content, it is cool to be able to work in this industry. But it's not as easy as a lot of people think it is. And really, it's a lot of thought work. It requires a lot of mental work. So I wanted to give some tips for people who are considering this field and how to maneuver and get yourself in a position so that you can not only work in it, but succeed in it. Because I'm someone who took the non-traditional route, because their social media as a major in school and digital marketing was not available when I was in school. And whenever I say that, I feel like I'm 1,000 years old. But social media is so new that there are people who are in the workplace and aren't like a baby boomer, because I'm not a baby boomer clearly, who didn't go to school for social. And so I went to school for PR, and I've been able to, through my work experience in television production and as writer and creating content, which is really what I've been doing, I've found a niche for myself in content. So you may or may not have gone to school for social, but even if you did, so schools teach you, they teach you kind of theory, and then they teach you some tactics, but they don't teach you, strategy and how to work in an environment where social is necessary. So enough for all of the preamble. Let me just jump right in. And so I have notes on my laptop here, so I'm going to reference them. I didn't write them down, but I typed them. And so the first thing is, this is how you start. So you just say you woke up one day and you're like, you know what? I think it'd be really dope if I could work in social media in some capacity. And so figuring out what that means is important. But before you even figure out what that means for you, you need to get a good snapshot of what that means as an industry, as a career path, as a job. So the first thing I would suggest is, I have notes, so And also, before I dive into this, if you know someone who is considering a career in social media, whether they're going to school for it or whether they are, out of school and considering transitioning, please share this with them. They will benefit from this whole series. They will benefit and get some clarity so that they can move forward and make sure that their resume is sexy enough to be hired, because that is what's key. And this is whether you are doing social for in corporate space, if you are doing it in the nonprofit space, if you're working as an entrepreneur, as a consultant, you still need to have a resume. Now, the way that you present your resume varies, but you need to have a resume to be able to show people that you can do the job. So the first thing you need to do is go to LinkedIn and type in social media jobs. If you want to get more specific, I would say type in social media manager, social media coordinator, social media manager, and social media coordinator, and look at people who are in those positions. And you want to look at the jobs that they have done where specifically they were a social media person, and look at what they did. And take notes. So I'm giving you notes to take notes of what I'm talking about, but when you're doing this research, write this stuff down. So you want to write down, when you look at their duties, make a note. And I mean, you don't have to handwrite it. If you want to handwrite it, feel free. If not, it's LinkedIn. You can just copy and paste it. I don't think LinkedIn will stop you from doing that. So take a note of the different things that they have to do within their job and jot that down. Get that down on a piece of paper so you can see and look at coordinator and manager. Now, these are two different positions, but they tend to look very similar. And if you are trying to get into social media and you don't have any experience, then that's probably the direction you'll go. Now, you could also look up, so I'm just going to list off. So you have social media coordinator, you have a social media manager, you have a community manager, and then you can also look at social media director. Because what you want to do is look at these positions, and then you want to kind of figure out what skills you have. Like, what are the things that are listed under their duties that you can do? Like, that you can, and not things that you could do. Start with things that you can do, that you don't have to, take a class or, ask someone else how to do, like things where you can be like, okay, I can do these things. And it's even better if you have done them in some capacity, but if not, we'll get to that. But make sure you focus on, so make a list. This is like mapping out your career, so you need to make some lists. So make a list of the things that you can do, and then make a list of the things that you could do, but either haven't done them before, but you feel like you could do them, or you might have done them like once. So you're like, I kind of could do that, but I can't lean into that. So make a list of things you can do, things you could do, and then things that you don't know how to do and you don't understand. And you want to make a list of this and, separate it out, make 3 columns, can do, could do, don't know how to do. And you need to make a list because you need to see where your skills fall in the gap, because you want to make sure that because now what you're going to have to do is do some research. But right now what you're doing is kind of internal research. So you're learning about the positions. So I'm going to repeat. So that's social media coordinator, social media manager, community manager, and social media director. And those aren't the only positions, but that's where you should start there when you're looking on LinkedIn and kind of figuring out, how you can play a role in the social media space. And so make these lists, and you can do one for each industry, for each field, for each role, or you can just pick a role that you think, is best represented by what you would like to do starting out and focus on that role. However you see fit. But out of those 4 roles, social media coordinator, social media manager, community manager, and social media director. Out of those 4 roles, you need to at least pick 1, maybe 2 if you're really on the fence, and make these columns about things you can do, things you could do, and things you don't know how to do. And then the next thing you want to do is visit salary.com. And there are other tools, I think, like Glassdoor. A lot of the job search sites, Simply Hire might do it. Some of the job search sites do this, but salary.com, that's kind of all they do. So I always suggest them, and their website is fairly easy to figure out. So go to salary.com and type in the title that most appeal to you. to get some idea as far as how much the average salary is for that position in your area, because nothing is more, crazy and interesting to me when I'm looking at like wanted ads and I see these different positions and then I see how much they're going to pay those positions, especially like a social media coordinator or social media manager, which are often deemed more junior positions. They like, sometimes they completely underpay. And if you don't understand like what, like these are tactical, practical skills that you're bringing to the table. So you should be making a salary that supports that. And so it's good to just know when you start applying for things, what it is that you should expect. And so just make a note, whichever position you feel most reflects what you would like to aim towards, and make a note of what that salary range is. So that way, when you're applying for jobs and when you're talking to people or when you're interviewing or when you're going to a search firm, you can speak comfortably in your area. And so salary.com does that and they do a really great job of it. And so now that you have your list of what you can do, what you could do, what you don't know how to do, what I suggest is do a search for, really, I want to simplify this because this could go really deep. So a great place to go to is Social Media Examiner, because they do a lot of kind of tutorial breakdowns about different elements of social media. And so I'm focusing on social media here. So I would go there and type in the position that you're looking for and see what types of articles come up. And you might, you could easily go down the rabbit hole and find a bunch of things. I don't want to overwhelm you, so I want to keep this simple. And so go to socialmediaexaminer.com. This is, they're not sponsoring this. This is just, it's a tool that I use a lot when I'm doing research. Thank you. So go there, type in the title that you're looking for, and see what articles come up and read those articles, because what you want to do is you want to learn how what you want to do fits in the market. And that's important because that gives you some idea of what to expect when you're talking to other people about your position. So go to socialmediaexaminer.com and research the title that you want to go through, because you want to also get a clear idea of the different skill sets that are required. Because now that you have an idea of what you could do and what you don't know how to do, you don't have to focus. The things you can do is like, got it, check, check, check. The things you could do, you want to look for ways to reinforce that. And the things you don't know how to do, you need to learn how to do them. And so that's a great place. Finding a group on Facebook is a great way. Now, make sure you find a group that fits your level, because there's nothing more that can be more frustrating than if you go into a group where everyone's super high level and talking about strategy and you show up and you're like, so how do I post on Facebook? And then everybody, some people might be nice and be like, well, this isn't really the place for that. And some people might be mean, just depending on the group and the dynamic and the people in the group. So look for groups that support where you are. So you can even do a search for like social media coordinators and see if you can find a group of people talking about social media coordination and the things that they experience and how they go about, getting better at their craft. So you want to learn your industry. So Facebook's a great place. Socialmediaexaminer.com is a great tool. And then now the last thing, and I'm going to end here, is you need to practice. So once you figure out where you want to be, you need to look for opportunities to do the thing you want to know how to do, because a lot more businesses are starting to become more savvy about the value of social media. And so they're starting to, thank you, yes. So they're starting to require you have some type of experience, even if you're in college. They want you to have some type of social experience, because what was happening before was that they were giving these people that were smart and savvy, but not necessarily socially savvy, these jobs, and they were making really horrendous mistakes that would come from understanding how it works. And also when you practice, when you provide the service for someone else, you tend to work with another person. And so this is the best way to get that experience. and to feel more comfortable, and also to learn what you don't know, because even in your list of could, can, could, and don't know how, there's still some things in there that you probably don't even realize need to be added. And so here are some places that you can get some practice. One great place is nonprofits. Nonprofits love professional volunteers. Love them, because they often, especially some of the smaller ones, even the larger ones though, they are often operating from very specific budgets. And unfortunately, a lot of times marketing, tends to fall a little bit further down the rung when they're really focusing on serving their population. So if you can provide some social media support to a nonprofit, awesome. If you find a nonprofit that has a social media person, someone who does it, and you can show up and support that person, even awesomer, because you will learn from that person, because they will have to tell you, this is what I need you to do in order to do it effectively. So nonprofits, great place to go to practice. Another place, small businesses. I would tread lightly here, because sometimes small businesses can sometimes abuse free labor because, as a small business, you have a lot of things. Yes, yeah, exactly. And if you're doing social media, when you provide professional support to nonprofits, you can often end up in like a high ranking volunteer position or a board member, because you're providing professional support. So that's like super sexy, because it's like I'm doing social media and I'm a board member and I get this access, win-win. That can really work really well. Small businesses, if you know of a person or a friend or a business who could benefit from, what I would suggest if you were to offer support for a small business is make it very specific. Not just say, hey, I'm gonna do your social media for free. Be like, hey, you have an event coming up. I would like to support your event and do social media for, yes. Oh yeah. And that's, unfortunately, I'm sorry to hear that, but unfortunately that tends to happen. Because it's like when you're in small business mode, oftentimes you get tunnel vision when you're trying to build your company. And so if somebody shows up and wants to help you, like they will try to take as much as possible, because it's like, well, you're here. Can you help me? Can you help me? Can you help me? So the best way to handle that is look for a small business that either does like events or like a specific type of campaign or something where you can say, hey, can I provide social media support for this one thing? Then you have an in and an out. And you also have a trackable time period where you're working and you can be measuring what you're doing. So that's a way to kind of help small businesses without end up feeling like you're being taken advantage of. Because just because they're taking advantage of you, it's not always malicious. Sometimes it just happens. And so that's one way to do that. And then the third group that you can help are organizations. So you have nonprofits, but then you have like professional organizations. Yes. Yeah, I will say, I'm going to quickly step away, just address, business partner. When you're working with small businesses, you have to be open to putting up the pause and being like this, and using words like scope creep and, proposal creep, and be like, so this looks like this is going above and beyond what it is that we initially talked about. So we need to renegotiate terms. Even if it's you're doing something because you believe in what they're doing, you still might need to renegotiate terms. And unfortunately, that sometimes has to happen. And when you're working with small businesses, it can happen, especially startups, because startups tend to go really fast, and they often need a lot of, strategic conceptual support outside of, they often need strategic support outside of your tactical support. And so even if it's free, you might have to say, you know what, because what's going to happen, unfortunately, and I'll get back on topic in 1 second, but as someone who's worked with startups, I understand this. I know exactly what you mean. And what's going to happen is that you're going to start to feel resentful, and that's going to start to present itself. And then it's going to affect them to the point where then it's going to become about that part of the relationship and less about the fact that they're just essentially rolling you into their stuff where you don't want to be in there. So, I get it when you're trying to get your resume up. What I would suggest, the three, I would say you might need to pull out of the startup space and ease into the nonprofit space. Because nonprofits, it's a lot easier to be specific about how you're helping because you're showing up as a volunteer. And as a volunteer, nonprofits tend to let you dictate your ability to participate because they're like, we're just thankful you're here and we'll let you choose the terms of how you participate. So I would suggest considering maybe backing out, especially if it's someone that you're friends with or you have a personal relationship outside of business and you want to maintain that. Just say, you know what, this isn't working for me. If it's a friend, I love you, I support you, I just can't do it this way. And look for nonprofits to support because they will definitely show up and be like, thank you, whatever you do. Even if you say, you know what, I will post on your Twitter account 3 times a week. And they'll be like, thank you, because we needed someone to post on our Twitter account. And, they'll do that. So the last thing, back on track. And that kind of is related because that's what can happen when you're trying to get experience. But organizations are another really great way. And it's another way you can get some professional experience, but also professional exposure. Yes. Yeah. So that's good that you are, that you have a paying client. And sometimes it's better to walk away than it is to try to keep it. No, not at all. Because it's funny you're asking that, but when you are out there and you want to get your professional experience up, those are some of the things you're going to have to do. And these are some of the things you're going to have to encounter is like how to deal with scope creep when even if it's free or like you did a low cost thing just to get some experience and, next thing you know, you feel like you're going to meetings for them when that's not what you were there for. And so it's definitely an important aspect of it, which is why I said tread lightly with the small business startup space because that can happen. And if you do the nonprofit and the organizational route, because it's a volunteer and because they understand that, you can have better control over the reins of your time and effort in a way that it can easily kind of spiral out of control with the businesses, unfortunately. So, it's a learning experience. I'm glad you're figuring it out now and that before it becomes a contentious situation, because I've seen that happen and it's not great. So you don't want that to happen. And so now I'm going to really quickly recap before I wrap up and watch my Fear of the Walking Dead before it gets dark outside because I can't watch zombie shows in the dark. But so you want to get into social media. This is where you start. Step 1, go to LinkedIn, type in one of these positions: social media coordinator, social media manager, community manager, or social media director. You can type them all in if you're feeling froggy and you want to really dive into some research, or you can just pick one of the 3 and you want to look at people who are in these positions and the skills that they have and also the duties that they have. And look at the profiles and make a list of the things that you can do. And this includes skills and duties, the things that you could do, and the things that you don't know how to do. You've had 3 of the free positions or all 3 of the ones that I listed. Yeah, so you probably shouldn't be doing any free work because you've had some practical experience. So now you just need to reframe the experience you've had and then look for ways to provide value where you can. So free work for businesses, you probably should focus on free work for, and you don't need coding experience, as that's a misconception that people think if you want to get into social media heavy, you need coding experience. You don't need coding experience. What you need is to be able to understand how to speak to coders. And you can get that type of practice by participating in hackathons, which is another great way to get some professional experience and meet some people without having to dedicate a bunch of free time to do it, because hackathons tend to be 24 hours, 48 hours. So you probably don't need coding experience. You just need to understand how they speak and what they need to know in order to help you do your job. So I would suggest look into hackathons. And I'll tack that on. That's another thing at the end. But yes. So that's helpful to learn how to code. But if social is your focus, I would strongly say you don't necessarily need coding. If you really want to do coding, that's cool. One thing I would, and this is a side note, but for anyone else who's tuning in, this is something I would suggest you looking into. If you have a marketing background and you want to get into coding, but you are trying to figure out what language to learn, and it could be somewhat convoluted, Facebook just launched a marketing API that has a very simple language to understand. So if you go, and it's under, I forgot, if you just type in Facebook Marketing API, they had just launched it. So essentially, they're making it possible for people to use Facebook's marketing resources and tools to create apps. And the language that they use to be able to, make that happen is simple. I read about it and I was like, this is dope. If you want to try to take the, pathway from marketing into coding, and you don't, and you haven't had the opportunity to really dive into a coding class and to learn the language, that's one way to get in. So I would consider that, looking up Facebook's marketing API and figuring out how you can bridge that gap for yourself. And then that could set you apart. And also you might be able to turn it into a business where you can be making some money with an app. So just throwing that out there. If you want to consider that, if you're interested in coding and marketing, that works well together. So that's the step one. Go to LinkedIn. You want to look up social media coordinator, social media manager, community manager, and social media director. Yes, and HTML and CSS are also helpful. So that too. So look for those 4 things on LinkedIn. Also, whichever ones you pick on LinkedIn, look for that on salary.com just to get some insight into what the money would look like in your industry, in your city for that particular industry. The next thing you need to do is look at that list of skills that you could do and figure out ways to enhance those skills. And then also look at the list of things you don't know how to do and look for classes. You can find free courses to help you get better at those skills. Let's see, Coursera is Coursera. Coursera is a great place to go. Udemy does have some free courses, so Udemy. And then Facebook actually has a tool called facebook.com/blueprint, which teaches you how to use Facebook's tools. But the really cool thing about, once you learn one social media and you learn like the ins and outs, Skillshare is another. Once you learn the ins and outs, Facebook is free. Coursera has a lot of free things. Udemy has free things, but they also have paid things. And Skillshare is another one that has a lot of paid things, but they're budget friendly. So figure out the things you don't know how to do, because you're going to need all of those things, and learn how to do them. And those are 4 places to learn how to do them. And then the last thing you want to do is practice. And by practice, I mean provide this service in some capacity for either a nonprofit or an organization. And also hackathons. So really quickly, go back. Yes, Google Analytics is a great skill to have. When it comes to, if you are starting off in social media and you're like a coordinator, then you might not need as much you might not want to focus on Google Analytics. But as you move up the rung of different social media skills, analytics is a great skill to have, because tracking and measurement becomes infinitely more important a part of your job the more senior you are. And I've learned, once you learn one analytics platform, it makes it a lot easier to figure out others. And Google Analytics is free. They have Google Analytics University that's free to teach you all the things you need to know about Google Analytics. And then you can be certified, which is also free to become certified. And that helps you immensely. I was able to really understand Facebook Insights in a deeper way once I got certified in analytics. So yes, definitely Google Analytics. And like I was saying, if you want to practice, nonprofits and organizations are great because they allow you can pick and choose. You can have better management of your time. If you want to do it for small businesses, yep, you should. It takes time. You got to be disciplined, but it's not super hard. And the only thing with small businesses, if you want to provide that support for small businesses, you have to be very specific and finite in the time that you can provide it, because you don't want it to turn into a scope creep situation. And scope creep really just means when you lay out the scope of a project and they say, this is what we need you to do, these things here. And then when they start asking you to do things outside of that. And so be careful of that. But, you can help businesses as well. And so that's really it. Like I say, tune in tomorrow because I will then talk about figuring out where you can provide social media services for. So this is going to be a few scopes series about working in social media and how to do that. So if you know someone who is trying to start that process, you can say, I have done this myself. Less about me figuring out, like once I figured out I wanted to work, I wanted to work in social in some way. I had to figure out what that looked like. And so this is the map that I took for myself. And so I'm telling you the same things that I've taken to get to the point where I want to do content strategy. So I hope this is helpful. If you know someone who is going through this same journey, please share this with them. You could share it on Facebook, share it on Twitter. You can send them a text with the link. You can send them an email with the link, and anything. Yes, please shoot me an email. We can definitely chat further to see how I can help you in your journey. So that is it. I hope this was helpful for everyone. Thank you for tuning in live. Thank you for those of you who are on the replay. Follow me. Oh yeah, I can definitely help. I can help angle you, maybe answer some questions for sure. So definitely send me an email. And everyone else, have a great evening. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to enjoy some Walking Dead before I enjoy The Voice. That's my watching schedule while I work. So that's it. Have a good day. And I look forward to the next time that we can scope again. Bye. You're welcome. I can't seem to get off, so.